Welcome back to Where You Live with Gene and Tony. We're glad that you're part of the show today. We are, if you're just tuning in, we're going to be talking about an article that was in the Star Tribune earlier this week about the whole topic of renting. Is that becoming more difficult for people to find good, decent housing to rent here in the Twin Cities? But before we do that, I need to let you know that we are broadcasting live from the Concierge Landscape Studios. We're brought to you this hour by Extreme Exteriors. And we also would like to let our listeners know, too, that we have a free subscription. It's a bi-monthly newsletter called What's New. We have the new State Fair edition that just came out, hot off the press. Make sure that you get your copy. If you're not getting this subscription now, give us a call at New Concepts at 952-922-2500. Ask for Courtney. She'll make sure that you start receiving that free, either hard copy by mail, or we'll send a electronic copy by email as well.
And where else can they pick up the State Fair edition of the newsletter, What's New?
Well, at the Minnesota State Fair, of course, too.
Yes.
And we're coming very close to that event, aren't we? Just
less than 2 weeks.
Yeah, just a couple weeks away here. And we want to encourage you all to come out. We've heard throughout the year a number of voicemails and calls that we've received from listeners, emails, and we appreciate hearing from those that listen to the show regularly. Come on out and introduce yourself. We'd love to see you there. Plus, we're going to have thousands of dollars of just fun giveaways and prizes. So you want to be there, or at least call in for
while we're there.
Yeah,
and that's on August 28th, Sunday morning from 10 to noon, and September 4th, Sunday morning from 10 to noon. We'll be at the Patriot booth on Machinery Hill.
Yep, that's right. So we hope to see you there. Well, let's get started in this article with the Star Tribune. It says renters are squeezed in a race for apartments. It says that Peter Johnson started shopping for an apartment in Minneapolis this last May, and grew worried when the listings on Craigslist were few and far between. Twice, apartments were rented before he even had the chance to look at them. It was so difficult, he ended up hiring a company to help him with the research. Apartments are just flying off the market, he said. People who moved in before with parents or found roommates during this recession period are now confident enough to secure their own place, and there seems to be a trend, the news article said, in the industry, which is being referred to as unbundling. I want to talk about that a little bit. Tony,
about the term
I'm
unbundling?
in this industry. We're in this industry. I don't know if I've ever. Have you heard of unbundling? No, I haven't.
No, I
either.
haven't.
Oh, we'll talk about it.
Okay.
But we're not nearly enough confident enough in this economy to buy, so they are now renting. One real estate agent said renters have not learned yet that they should be buying now. In the Twin Cities, the average apartment vacancy rate has fallen from 2.4%, half of what it was about a year ago. Another woman looking for an apartment, for example, they gave the example of an Amy Sack, who just moved back to the Twin Cities from Chicago. And here was what she found when she started looking for an apartment. She was shopping for an apartment in a neighborhood on the edge of downtown St. Paul that would allow for pets, for dogs. She called or emailed to get information on about 25 places, but she said she only heard back from about 4. By the time she had sent her mom to preview apartments, they were rented out. And she said, we're just, I'm going to have to forget about trying to even find a place that will allow pets. She said, I'm just lucky to get a place. It says, for landlords, this has turned to something that's very sweet indeed, as the tight market has allowed them to see places filling up. Lisa Moe, who I think is someone in the industry that we know.
Yep.
And with, I think, Stewart Corporation?
Yep, Stewart Company.
Yep. And she said that she had an apartment that was a few years ago 30% occupied, full today.
Wow.
So there does seem to be a difference in the market. Wouldn't you say, Tony?
Absolutely.
Are you seeing this?
Absolutely. It's a huge difference. And people are going to start talking about greedy landlords again.
Of course.
Because the market's good for us finally after about 8 years of a terrible market. This article cites 7% vacancy rates as the high point of the vacancy rates.
I would say
when in
nay.
truth, because so many landlords had to give away gifts or give away free rent, the economic vacancy actually hit about 12%. Mm-hmm. I want to say that was in 2008.
And it got to be more than just free rent. It wasn't just the month rent free. There were additional giveaways. Flat screen TVs, right?
Yep.
And other and other things.
A microwave that you got to keep, things like that. Landlords really competing to try and get renters. So it was definitely the renters market for a long, long time. Also, the rent rates, the amounts of the rents have been very suppressed. Rents have not gone up for years and years. And in fact, at one point they went backwards. I was just looking at an apartment building, their specs this morning in Belle Plaine, and their rent in 2008 was about 10% higher. Mm-hmm. They've had to come down since 2008 to now, to 2010, in order to get it filled. But now things are looking up for the landlord. So renters, you need to be aware of this. Rents are going to go up. They've gone up an average of 2.1% over the last year, and and the article says this too. Landlords are filling up their places now. We're just also thrilled that we can get tenants in all of our empty places.
Now you are dealing with this part, this division with our company, New Concepts. Do you see this as something that's going to last a little bit longer? Do you think it's not? Isn't just short term?
I don't think it's short term. I think we're going to have a good period here for landlords. Rents are going to continue to go up. 2.1 is really a very modest increase, and I think they're going to continue to go up because landlords have absorbed a lot of costs and a lot of cost increases over the last 8 or 9 years that they have not been able to recoup from the income they're getting from their property. So beware, rents are going to continue to go up. There's a scarcity of available rentals on the market right now, although there's been some shifting back and forth in the condo market. Mm-hmm. A lot of rentals were taken off the market over the last 8 years because they were turned into condominiums.
And now they're back as rentals.
And now they're coming back as rentals because the owners of those condos can't sell their condo, so they're putting it on the market as a rental.
So either way, that's kind of ironic, isn't it? Here we've had a lot of the apartments that were sold as condos, didn't sell as condos, and so the ones that aren't selling are now being rented out. So they're still rentals.
They're rentals again. One thing I want to point out, if you are looking for a rental, you have to be fast. You have to be quick. And you said this, Gene, you shouldn't necessarily hide behind your technology. You can't find an apartment by just sitting watching Craigslist all day, obviously.
That is what really, I guess, caught my attention here. Both people were talking about, and I'm just thinking in my mind, these are probably younger people, Gen Xers, probably millennials. And for someone who's a millennial, the average way for them to communicate is a text message, it's an email, it's something that's quick on the computer.
Right.
And when people aren't responding that way, we're talking about some people who I don't think they know what to do.
Yeah. And in truth, most of the landlords you're dealing with are not as technically savvy as you are, Mr. and Miss Renter. So you should pick up the phone. If you're not hearing back from people via email or text, pick up the phone. I also want to mention it's not a good idea to send your mom to look for the apartment. And I'll tell you why. Unless mom's going to sign the lease and pay the deposit and pay the rent, because landlords do not have time to mess around with your mom and show her an apartment because the next appointment's going to rent it. So we kind of frown on that. We want the people who are going to live there to come and look at it.
You want people to be able to show some desire and ability.
That's right.
And so
that's right. And it's going to do you better too if you show up. Can I say one more thing?
Sure.
Drive around the neighborhood where you want to live. Don't just rely on Craigslist because they're going fast. If you want to live in Uptown, drive around Uptown and look for the signs. Sit right there and call the phone number on the sign and start making connections.
Yeah. Well, and again, the idea of just doing what you're used to in communication, you're going to have to get out of your comfort zone.
Yep.
I told a story once before, 2 years ago. Had my sisters, their families were all up at our cabin in Wisconsin, and all of the nieces, nephew, everyone's together, but they're not even in the same room communicating. They're text messaging one another in different rooms. And
that just seems so crazy.
They're posting things on Facebook.
Oh, funny.
And we're getting to a point where my sisters and I, we just said, you know what? Get out and actually start enjoying some of the stuff you say you're doing here. And, and so for someone who's a millennial, you've got to realize that when you're dealing in a market, supply and demand says that, whoever is the one that is in need is going to have to adapt to the other person.
That's right.
And so if it is a landlord's market, you're going to have to adapt to the landlord.
That's right. And my 80-year-old mother, who's a landlady in Uptown, does not text. Okay? She tells us her phone won't text.
Yeah.
So that's who you're dealing with.
They do, but she just says
but she doesn't. Yeah, she doesn't know they do that. It does.
So that's it. So good news for the landlord.
Yeah.
And
some adaptation.
And for those
renters
who are renters, a little hustle is needed to be able to get a good place to rent.
There you go.
Well, let's take another break, and when we come back, I want to hear what you think, Tony, about this idea that Toyota has about what they call their next base generation vehicle car sharing with condominiums. An interesting idea. We'll be back after these messages.